Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or as we like to say here at Shady Acres Woodshop, howdy. Today I have a piece of plum, nice tight bark. I cut this from a piece of wood that Nate from Mr. Nate's Woodshop sent me. He sent this to me from Oregon, where he lives now, but he used to live in Lakewood, Washington, about a half an hour from where I live, and that's where this piece of plum came from. And then he hauled it down to Oregon when he moved, and now he sent it back up to Washington. Now this piece has rotted and weathered quite a little bit, so we're going to end up cutting away quite a bit of the bottom, and of course this will be the top. And I've drilled a clearance hole here for my chuck jaws, and I've drilled a woodworm screw hole, and I'm going to take it over here to the lathe and get it mounted up, and we're going to get to turning. Stand by. Now I just knocked the corners off of this piece. I didn't try and get it round, and it is out of balance, so the best I can do is about 520 RPM. The piece currently is about 10 inches in diameter. It's probably going to end up being about 9 inches in diameter, and it's about 4 inches thick. I'm going to get my mask and face shield on. I've just sharpened up my 5/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge, and we're going to get to turning. Well, I've got that flattened off. I'd like to get it up, get the RPMs up a bit, so I'm going to come out here and work on this side and this corner. I think we can pick the speed up here pretty quick. We'll try it now. About 800. I don't have a shape in mind yet. I'll go back to work on the bottom. Ooh, that's pretty. I'm missing a piece of bark up here, right here. It was missing in the beginning, and son of a gun if it isn't still missing. So it's just another 1/4 inch or so. So maybe I'm going to round over this top or something, I'm not sure what. Yeah, that looks pretty good at the top. I know you can't see the top, but trust me, it looks pretty good. I'll go back down and start working on this corner some more, and we'll finalize the tenon. I'm going to adjust my tool rest a little higher and use my diamond point tool to straighten up the sides of the tenon. That looks better. Now I'm not real sure that I can trust my woodworm screw. When I screwed it on there, it went on pretty hard, but then it didn't really seem to seat all that well. So I'm going to back off the tailstock, but I'm also going to turn the speed down. And I just want to cut this off. I could do it with a saw, but I don't have a saw in my hand. Probably about 600 RPM. Well, of course, I'm up too high now. And we'll come back in here and re-register our center hole for later. Okay, we're just about done here. Well, I guess I like what we got going on. We'll pick the speed back up here. Well, now we're talking about 1200. I think we're done with the outside. I'm pretty happy. Time for sanding. I'm starting the sanding at 80 grit in reverse at 350 RPM. I'll work up through at least 400 grit, and I'll bring you back when it's time to put some finish on here. See you in a bit. Well, the sanding was pretty straightforward on this. No real issues. And I got a nice smooth finish. So I decided to go with shellac-based sanding sealer and shellac for a finish. So this is the first coat of the sanding sealer. So I don't know if one coat's gonna do it or if it'll take two. And then I put a little bit in this can, and I've got this little acid brush. And I'll just dip it in there. We still have a little bit of bad grain here, a little bit of bad wood. That's okay, it just adds interest, but I need to get some of the sanding sealer in there. And then plum wood is famous for cracking up here at the sapwood. Gets these big cracks in it. And I don't think I've ever seen plum wood that didn't have them. And I've turned plum before. So at least one coat of this, maybe two, and then I'll put 2 coats of shellac on, and I'll bring you back when it's time to turn it around and start working on the inside. See you in a bit. You know, the bark on this plum wood is striking all in itself, and I hate to even cut it away, but of course I will. But I probably am going to leave it kind of thicker around the edges than I might otherwise, because it's just too beautiful. If you could see up here, which you can't, where it has some finish applied to it, it just sparkles. It's wonderful. Okay, so 5/8 inch freshly sharpened standard grind bowl gouge, mask and face shield on, 1200 RPM. I had to cut away so much of that bottom that I want to check and make sure I'm not getting too close here. No, we got a ways to go. Just checking though. There's a big crack here that doesn't show on the outside at all. So hopefully that'll go away. Yeah, maybe it's not gonna go away. That's those cracks I was telling you in the sapwood on the outside. There's actually one here and one here. And I think it goes all the way through there. It does stop, but it's down there quite a ways before it's going to stop. I'm kind of sad about that. And we're just starting to get into that beautiful grain. just about there. It's about 3/8 of an inch in the bottom. The walls are thicker. That crack is just about gone, except that here it does go all the way through, clear to the outside. I could undercut this piece and make these walls thinner. That was my intention, but with that big crack in there, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm going to switch to a 1/2 inch standard grind bowl gouge because I want to get in here a little bit tighter. And let me check one last time in the bottom here. Yep, 1/4 inch. I think we're ready to scrape. Got a fresh edge on my scraper as well. Okay, time for sanding. I'm going to start the sanding by sanding the bark with my Sandoflex. It's just going to be, I'm not going to spin the piece while I'm doing it. I don't want to damage the outside finish that's all done. It's quite nice and I don't want to screw it up. So I'll just be holding the piece in place. Going like that. And then I will switch to a 2-inch sanding disc and do the inside just normally. Like that. So let me get my mask on and I'll show you how that's going to work. That's going to make quite a difference, and when I get some finish on there, you're just not going to believe it. And with the lathe spinning at 350 RPM. And I'll alternate between forward and reverse. That was forward. And that doesn't look like it's going to create any problems, and I'm grateful for that. So it shouldn't take too long, and I'll bring you back here in just a little bit when it's time to put some sanding sealer on the inside. It's going to look great. Okay, let's watch this happen. You gotta love a nice pink color in wood, huh? I sanded the bark at 180 grit, and I sanded the inside from 80 through 400. To me, this is what's going to really make the difference. That really brings out the bark, huh? So I will be working on this. Probably 1 coat of sanding sealer. That's what I did on the outside, is 1 coat of sanding sealer, 2 coats of shellac, and I'm sure I'll do the same on the inside. It might require 2 coats of sanding sealer, but I don't think so. I got a real nice sanding job on there. I'm trying to be careful here. I don't want to get the sanding sealer on the nice finished outside. Although they're both shellac based, if I do, it's not the end of the world. I'm probably going to put a 3rd coat of shellac on the outside when I do the inside with shellac, just because I'm afraid I will go over the edge. So I'll bring you back here in a little bit when all the finish is on, and we'll turn it around and remove that tenon. Don't go anywhere. Okay, let's get this wrapped up. I've mounted a block of wood in my chuck. I'm going to place the bowl over that and bring up the tailstock. I still have my center hole there for reference. Going to apply a little pressure, bring up my tool rest. spin the piece up a bit, hold my thumbnail against the tenon, make sure it hits equally all the way around, and it does, so we know we're spinning well. Apply a little more pressure, and I'm going to take a 3/8 inch standard grind bowl gouge and begin to removing the tenon at about 600 RPM. And as it gets smaller, I'm going to slow the speed down about 400. And just keep working away at that little nub. And I want to check for clearance. And I have good clearance. Now I'm going to switch to a 3/8 inch swept back bowl gouge so that I can get in here a little tighter. I'm also going to raise my tool rest just a little bit so that I can be nice and tight. Okay, and that's probably small enough. Now I'm going to slow it down to about 200 RPM, and I'm going to place the bevel of the gouge against the bottom of the bowl, applying pressure towards the headstock. Right hand on the gouge, left hand on the switch. And when the little nub stops turning, then we know we're through. Like that. Well, except it didn't get through. It broke away. Sometimes that happens. Just depends on the wood. So I will take it over here to the workbench. Well, it's mostly gone. And I'll sand up this 2-inch area. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that wonderful grain? My gosh. I don't think I've ever seen grain like that before. And the bark, look at that bark. It doesn't get much better than plum bark. There's the bottom all finished up. A real nice piece. Thank you, Nate, from Mr. Nate's Woodshop, for sending this to us for all to enjoy. If you like this video, thumbs up please, I'd sure appreciate it. If you're a subscriber, thank you very kindly, I truly appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber, you might consider becoming one. I put out regular videos about one a week, and I'd like to keep in touch. Your comments are always welcome, and I read all of them. So for now, this is Phil, Shady Acres Woodshop, signing off.